Hello, welcome to the Reframing Mindset podcast. We are clear my head of the thoughts that are preventing clarity, practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, welcome back to Reframe Mindset podcast. My name is Concert Books, and this episode um I talk about customer demands and managing and controlling customer demands. Because next thing is I'm doing this 9 to 5, and what I realize is that the level, the level of so the level of like where the place I'm working is like the we are working for a very successful we are handling business for a very successful company. So this so by successful by that standard is that it has a lot of customers. So by it having a lot of customers, I'm talking about large scale amount of customers. And to give you a scale, we have um let's say around 8 billion people on the planet. And this is a company very successful, you know. So it's a lot of people that actually so there's a lot it has a lot of customers. So that makes you say, okay, it's um so the customer so on a daily you're handling a lot of problem for a lot of customers. So or for example, again, like for example, a pandemic again, where a disease can basically come and basically the whole race, our whole whole human population. There'll be a lot of demand from the science community to actually do something to actually help the people. So like what would be that it will be unexpected. It will be unexpected rise in customer demand for a solution and stuff like that. That's a scenario that can happen. So doing this 9 to 5, what I realized was there were some days where there's a lot low customer volume where I could just basically just go and just like every 10 minutes or so I would get a call and be like, oh, I solved the problem. And then when I solve the problem, I don't even get that next call until like maybe 5 to 10 minutes later again. Sometime, yeah, 5 to 10 minutes later. It's never longer than longer than that. But there are some times now where like as soon as a call ends, we're getting the next call. We're getting the next call because what have you? There's a lot of people just call in. A lot of people want their problem fixed. So that's how it works. That's how it works. So depending on the situation, you have to actually be able to control that. And uh, so that's another aspect of it where you have to actually be able to not only con you have to be able to actually, and this is why I say we're in the planning phase, the idea phase. These things are you can't execute on all those stuff as yet because if you actually do it and and then something like this happen, you get a lot of customers in the first place, and then boom, you're not able to actually manage that. Then it breaks down. It breaks down. The business flop before it stops before it begins because the over demand for the product and we're not able to deliver it. So you have to actually plan for this where the customer demands where there's a lot of people that actually so when we have the foundation set, so the important thing is have the foundation set in and how the business will deliver its product, the system, the back when I said in the past we are talking about rules or something like that, where we have the standards. So the standards are set and how to do stuff. once you have those basic standards. Because what I realized was the reason why I'm able to actually handle the days when we have high customer demand was because during the training and up till now, and I know being that we're 8 months into the 9 to 5 experience, is that the basics important basic was drilled down into us so that once we get a call, we're just able to actually follow the basic um core things, and then we're able to solve the problem, and then we know it, so repetition brings learning, and that's how we're able to reach a point where in the first few days I'm stressing out over the fact that I'm getting so many calls and frustrating, but now it's like I'm expecting it and now to actually get better because I'm able to manage customer demands. And then the next part of it, so that's one part of it, and then next part is now to control customer demands. Because one thing I realized as well doing this work was that, once you have a business that is successful or stuff like that, the customer expects you to be magicians or stuff like that. Magicians are superheroes. See, it's like, for example, you design a product to actually do certain things, a simple thing. But then, you have your person that actually love the product and stuff. And then what happens because they love the product, they expect you to actually want something else, but you're not able to actually do it yet, or stuff like that. And because of that, there's a lot of frustration, demanding, and stuff like that. They'll be like they're threatening your business, they're threatening leaving your business due to the fact that you can actually supply that demand when you're not in a position to do that yet, or you're not able to actually that's not part of the business, all of stuff, but they're expected to do it. And I'd be like that, no, that's something that I dealt with, and I'd be like, so it's that one of those stuff where it's hard to deal with in a sense, because when you're in the driving seat, you're you know I'm a person, the thing is, when you're listening, there's a perspective where the third person and the first person perspective, where in the first person perspective, if you're a gamer, you know what first person and third person should be. If you're you should know what that is. So in the first person perspective, you're actually in the job doing the work, and you're hearing all the issues that they're being coming up with, and then you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, this is what I sound like when I actually have a problem and I call a person to ask me for help." you know, and then you have the third person where you are making the call and you'll be like, "Bro," you'll be like, um, you'll be calling for something that you think is a very complex person. You'll be like, "Oh yes, I'm very smart, but this problem is just too complex. I guess I have to actually call the person in." And yes, you're right, because I am that person. That's how the industry that I work in. I rarely ever call them unless it was something very specific. But when you're in the first person perspective, when you're doing the job, then you realize that there's a lot of people calling for the same problem. For the same problem. I'm like, whoa, oh, so for example, your issue can get resolved quickly because we realize these are common problems that happen, and what happens at certain times, this problem arise a lot, and then so you in the first person in the business of science, you have to actually be able to control the expectation. Once they call in for a specific thing, you have to make them be like, okay, yeah, and that's something that I'm working on in my work, in the work as well as stuff like that. Is after maybe able to make them let them expect understand that, yeah, this is what we can do, and that's the thing. Humor. The thing about it is that respect, and we talk about it already in our episode. We talk about hierarchy is so you know it's in the business, one of the things that you have to focus on, make the customer respect everyone at every level, so that everyone at each level has their weight of respect. You know, because what I realize is that people expect once one I mentioned before, people will call them about a certain problem, and I would just get they not may not understand the issue. I explain to someone over me, and they tell me exactly what to do. I tell them, but they want to hear the same thing from the person that told it, because they want bias. They want not bias, and not bias in the sense that negative bias is just a type of human bias where they want to hear it from someone with a specific level of superiority, so that they could be like, so they take it. But in business, in science, that's not that, all of those out of the window. We're dealing with are facts and logic and stuff like that. They can't be coming up here and want it can't be come up here and want the feel good answer, giving you the facts. So that's controlling customer demand is important. So for example, word choice as well and stuff like that is important in the business of science. You have to be able to actually explain to people like, bro, we are scientists. There's things we can. There's limitation at what we can do at any given point. I can't promise you everything. I just can promise you what I can know, and they have to be able to understand that. They don't understand that, you know, there's a lot of tension and stuff like that. So one of the thing is that I mentioned before. I think I mentioned before, and what is important again is that business has to be independent. When you start out the business, it can't be relying on any sort of funding or stuff like that. Or if it does, you have to be able to pay. Because what happens is that once you're not independent, you're it's focused on the the standard or quality or the trust of these things become lower, because you're in becomes lower because um you're beholden to someone else. You're beholden, and that's how the quality of products and companies fall, because maybe they take a loan, and then they're behind, and then what happens now is they start take shortcuts to actually try to um reach a place where you have to actually do the process to actually do it right, and then a lot of problem occurs where you have, for example, high customer demand but not able to actually meet that demand, and then boom, the business goes the thing goes out of business. So that's basically it for this part of it, where controlling customer demand is very important. That's basically for this episode. Thank you for listening, and look forward for our next episode. Mhm.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.
There is lower level and high level part of the business. You know, that's one of the things that I realize as well. I'm talking about having this big business vision, not this big science vision and whatnot. And I talk about symbiotic relationship in business and stuff like that. And here, so you imagine that there's a lot of different section of the business. But the thing about it is that there is also, so what will happen is that there some part will be highly respected and some part will not be highly respected. But they're all important in making sure that the best quality thing is important. And and I experienced that, if you're listening to my journey up to getting my degree, you realize that now when I was at university, I did